Good evening. Let me get the Board of Finance regular meeting for March 18th called to order. I'm Mike Anderson, the chair, Dan Smith, the vice chair. We have Gary Anino online, Carl Johnston, alternate, Eddie McGowan, alternate, Lou Gendrella, Sarah Nelson, and Winona Burdine. And let's move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any public comment before we get started? Jonna?
No. Big button, wait.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Good job.
Donna Chokas, 6 Rocky Hollow Road. During the reevaluation, residents were told not to panic, that the mill rate would drop and taxes would level out. On March 11th, the Board of Finance determined the mill rate was 19.84. And with the approval of the library renovation at 0.17 mils, the current total mill rate is 20.01. Is that correct? I think I have that correct.
I think you're close, yes.
Okay. Based on this number, my taxes would go up $1,582.36, along with increases to the escrow on our mortgage and our homeowner's insurance. It's a lot of money, and our situation isn't unique. It reflects the broader impact on our town residents due to this reevaluation. For the past 4 years, our town revenue has increased and town spending has increased right alongside with it, with new line items consuming all the extra revenue. Even though our mill rate stayed flat because of the increased revenue, the pattern of increased spending is catching up to us now as we deal with budget bloat. We just approved $1 million for much needed library renovations, but that requires discipline elsewhere because we can't have it all. The proposed Board of Selectmen budget is up 7.86% and still includes placeholder line items that weren't used last year, along with new spending on flock cameras, additional fire staffing, and continued road work. Those are areas that need to be reconsidered. If a line item had 0 spending last year, it should be 0 this year. Stop padding line items. And for all non-essential programs like recreation, costs should be shared more directly by those who choose to participate, i.e. parents. Tonight, the Board of Ed is proposing a 5.47 increase, about $883,000, bringing their budget to nearly $16.9 million for the next year. At the same time, they're returning a 1.86 surplus from this year, while also saying they may need to come back for more funding due to special education costs next year. Confusing? Yes. As we're being asked to approve a higher budget, accept a surplus, and leave the door open for an appropriation all at once. Reassuring? No, because the school budget can't go down once it's approved. Their budget only moves one way up. And this isn't sustainable for a small town with limited resources. This is about balance. Schools and services matter, but so does affordability. Right now, that balance is off. In a reevaluation year like this, I'm asking all boards to take a hard look at their priorities and make the adjustments needed to bring the balance back to the town taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonna. Any other public comment? She might show you up, Brian. I don't know if I would do it. Yeah. Any online? Okay. On to correspondence. I did receive a correspondence from Bob today regarding the new building that EB is putting in. And you have the email in front of you. And I'm gonna add that to an agenda item. I know we have a long meeting tonight, and we will talk briefly about this, and we'll certainly take it into more detail on Monday, Bob, but if you could just kind of give us a quick overview, we'll add that as agenda item 4A.
Thanks, Mike. So this is pretty much a good news, bad news scenario. Good news is, look at these building permits we already got 70,000 in for the foundation for the EV building. Anticipated another 299,000 sometime in May or June for the building itself. The building inspector has to go through those plans first before they determine whether that's truly the right number or not. It may be more. If you're like me saying I can build my house for 150,000 and the building inspector says, no, you can't. So that's why the plans have to be looked at. Again, the good news is we have this additional revenue that's coming in, and we can defer. I think Melissa's online. If this comes in May or June, we could defer the revenue, the second revenue, the 299,000 or whatever it ends up being, to next fiscal year, because that's when we'll be paying the additional inspector fees in next fiscal year. With that said, because we'd be paying additional inspector fees next fiscal year, that would be additional cost to the taxpayer. Not truly a cost, because it'd be coming out of the permit fees. So ballpark, I'm saying that there's roughly $570,000 in permit fees that would be coming in, $297,000 in fees going out, total of $273,000 of net income for the town. I'm asking, the reason I sent it to you today, Mike, and to the Board of Finance this evening is I need some guidance. I want to know, how do we want to do this? Melissa was mentioning doing it through the P&L. Since this is a one-off, it's a one building, we're not going to build an EB building and then 2 years later stop.
Can you explain that, how that's different from budgeting it?
Yeah, so Melissa can, but by putting in the P&L, it's still fully transparent. It's a line item you're tracking, it's recorded, and it's almost like putting the money that comes in from the permits in a bucket and then paying the fees for the building inspector out of that bucket. If we put it in the budget, which we could, if that's what you say we should, and put 500,000 additional in the revenue line, we still didn't have to put the other 300,000 in the expense line, which is going to raise the budget up to a number that then you have to explain that, well, there's really a $200,000 increase to the town, but you're not seeing that because we don't reflect the revenue on the front page of the budget.
You're basically escrowing it.
Excuse me?
You're basically escrowing that.
Right. So I'm asking the Board of Finance, not tonight, this is something you can discuss because you have a long meeting tonight. Maybe Monday we can talk about it.
Yeah.
But what you think is the best way to handle this is you hate to have something that's going to happen good for the town, but it looks like it's not so good because we're raising the budget by 300,000. So that's all. That was what I wanted to explain.
Right. And it's different from, say, like town road projects that we get LoCIP money for, which happen year after year over year over year. So they should be budgeted. This is not, it's a one-off for this particular fiscal year, right?
Right, exactly. Even like building, you might build 10 houses one year, 15 the next, 5 the next, but it's always, you're always having houses built. There's not going to be multiple EB plants built, not that we know of anyway. And if you had a particular question this evening for Melissa about that, she's online, she could answer that question.
Go ahead.
No, actually, I had a question for Bob before he walked away. Hey, so I know I watched your meeting last night and you guys were talking about, you contacted one inspector and then another one, you had some conversation about what is the town policy on hiring or selecting or hiring a subcontractor or a contract employee of like that magnitude? Is it required you had to get 3?
No, so if you look at the purchasing policy, when you do things where the services provided, similar to an attorney, an architect, an engineer, it falls under that, but it also says this does not preclude the town from at least doing their due diligence when it comes to pricing. It doesn't say we have to get
lowest.
Yeah, but it's actually trying to find out if we're where we're supposed to be. I had about an hour meeting tonight with the building inspector after work. He comes in around 4:30. We talked. I have a lot of information I got from him. I'd like to talk to my board about first before I talk about it publicly. But I think we're in a good spot. I explained a lot to why we would go this route, why this individual makes sense. And I'd just like to talk to the board first before I talk about it. But yes, it does not fall under the purchasing policy because it's rendered services like an architect and lawyers and so on.
Mhm.
However, it doesn't mean that we're off the hook. We can just take anything. We have to still do some due diligence.
How many hours does our present building inspector work?
4 to 5 hours a week, maybe.
Okay. So I guess just for the audience and people at home, this project is we're going to require pretty much a full-time building inspector because of all the different trades. And they're all going to have to be required to be signed off on. And if we do not have an additional inspector, the project will go at a snail's pace and it's not, EB is not just going to, they're not going to stand for that. So that's the reason why we would consider hiring a new person that would basically be on that job site all the time. And right now, the estimated cost for that level of services would be $297,000, $240,000.
Tim did say if we want to hire him as our full-time inspector, he'd be glad to take $110,000 a year plus benefits, which would be about $150,000 a year. And by the way, he wouldn't be able to work on anything else in the town but the EB building.
Right.
He did tell me this evening that I said, what are you gonna do with the library? How are you gonna handle it? He goes, I'll handle that in-house because you pay me to be your inspector. I'll make that as part of my regular business, but I couldn't do the library, the EB building and day-to-day.
The
life.
present inspector you're talking about.
Yes, the present one, sure.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, any questions, guys? No. All right, we'll address this again at Monday's meeting.
Great, thank you.
Board of Education. And thank you all for being here. I just think it's important for us to all, be together to hear your presentation, talk about this initial budget. And to Ms. Chokas's point, kind of see where that first budget takes us. I have some slides afterwards that includes that money, and we'll see what the impact is. So we can all kind of really understand, I guess, with the squeeze that we're in, that hopefully will shape this budget season. We'll work together and hopefully present something to the town that's palatable in the end. And get a budget passed in the first go around like we have for the last 3 years. That's my goal. Please, Troy.
Hey, good evening. I'm very pleased to be here to advocate for the Board of Ed budget for fiscal year 27. The board did quite a bit of work in putting it together, and we have a few slides to kind of guide the presentation. You'll see in the slides that I actually presented a budget a bit higher initially, the superintendent's budget to the board, and they asked to see if we can get it down, and we did get it down significantly, and we'll talk about how we did that. Before we get into the presentation, I just want to share that I totally appreciate everybody's role in the budget season, and we all have responsibilities. My responsibility is to the quality of learning in the town through the school system. And that's the board's responsibility. I know the Board of Finance also likes that and it wants that, but you also have a responsibility to the taxpayer, and you have the tough job figuring out where that balance is. And I think unfortunately, it's not a clear-cut answer. Sometimes it's debatable what that balance is. Anyway, so I just appreciate everybody and everybody's role in the budget season. All right, can we go to the next slide, please? By the way, while we're on that slide, you see the nice circle graphic. That's a visual of what we call our vision of the graduate. And those are the major skills we want kids to acquire while they're in our school system: collaboration, literacy, analysis, and communication. One of the things we've worked on ever since even before I came, the schools were doing really great work. And when I saw what they were doing, I said, you know what? You guys, you might as well just do district-wide NEASC accreditation because you're already doing the work anyway. And the high school already has to have the visits. You already have to put a team up in a hotel and pay for that. And it's really about the same cost, just adding in the other school in the process. And we've done that. We're the first in Connecticut to actually enter the district accreditation process. We had a collaborative conference. A group of 9 people came and visited us for 2 days in the fall. They were really impressed with us. Their report is on our webpage if you want to look at it. The board has looked at that. And a lot of work we're doing, you can see like curriculum work. They agreed with us. Yes, we have to document more of our learning and instruction and how is that happening? How do we know the kids are learning? The technology infrastructure. They noticed that we had just had a cybersecurity incident and they came and it wasn't great timing, but they realized how seriously we were taking it. It forced us to upgrade a lot of stuff, but we still have some work to do. Tier 1 instruction, that's basically high quality instruction for all kids in classrooms. And if you do that and you meet the needs right away, the need for intervention later is less. And of course, the vision of the graduate, the whole district kind of going towards the same purpose. One of the things on the bottom of the slide here has to do with, it's all about kids learning, but the kids are going to learn best if the adults are lifelong learners. So we have really quality structures and systems in place for professional development for our educators. And most of that's in-house. We have a director of learning and instruction, and we have our program supervisors, and they work hand in hand to upgrade the instruction in classrooms, make it more cutting edge and up to date. What's the best way for kids to learn? That's our goal, is to do that in classrooms. And the educators have to keep up with their learning in order for the kids to learn their best. Let's go to the next slide. At Wheeler specifically, some of the major focuses have to do with the library redesign. You may remember that was one of the cuts in the budget last year. We went from a full-time library media specialist at Wheeler down to 0.4 or 40% or 2 days a week equivalent of. We actually hired someone 1 day a week, and we used the other money to hire a couple aides to try to cover more hours in the library. And that's worked pretty well, but we're ready to start rebuilding back. So you'll notice in this budget that we're proposing that we move that position from 0.4 to 0.6, a little step up. There's a lot going on. There's a committee about the Library Media Center with students and staff and administrators, and they have a vision, and they really want to make it a modern place to support learning. So they're making progress in that. The athletics, you may know that our athletics are very popular. A high percentage of our students participate on athletic teams. We've expanding opportunities for kids, especially in the middle school. We added indoor track a couple of years ago, and then we added outdoor track, and very, very popular with kids. We don't have like a track that they can train on, but we go to Griswold at times and they make do. Yes, it'd be great to have a nice turf field with a track around it at some point in this town. It's very costly. Okay, we actually are meeting with someone to kind of write up a plan in case anybody wanted to make a big donation, or we found a big grant and would be ready to go to RFP for that. But anyway, our teams are doing really well. Really great success athletically. We've had increased costs in sports transportation and officials, like timers and measurers for track meets and that type of thing. So you'll see there's a little bit of money in the budget for that. In terms of guidance, we're switching to a program called Naviance to SchoolLinks. SchoolLinks is it's really a guidance software. It kind of houses all the college application process, but also career exploration and student success planning, even starting in elementary school, and that plan can follow them right up till they graduate from high school. And it's only $3,300. And we don't have a whole list of software that we gave you, but certainly I expect that you're probably going to want to see some other documents or some of the point in the process. And if you wanted that one, we can certainly provide a list of software. And, there's just increased cost of other things, science materials and manufacturing. We're still using the wood shop down here. We have manufacturing classes, is very popular with the kids. We have some new equipment we've obtained through a Perkins grant, which is a career and technology education grant. So we're looking to expand those opportunities. And not all kids are going to go to a college, but if they don't, we want them to have some marketable skills coming out of Wheeler. Let's go to the next slide, please. Elementary school. A lot of great work has happened at the elementary school over the last several years. They've implemented a new reading program, a new math program called Bridges. The teachers have worked really hard, and they're really good at it. They're really good at teaching the reading and the math to the kids and other subjects. And we're getting really good at having data teams where we get educators together and they look at the student achievement data and make decisions for their further instruction based on that. And there's a lot to be proud of with how our schools are functioning in the elementary school, where they really focus on each individual kid and how they're learning. They have a standard space report card now. They also have parent conferences where the kids are leading the conference. They're actually showing their parents their work and their teacher, and they're talking through their learning and their successes and their struggles. And we're doing that in grade 5, 6, 7, and 8. And that's fairly new. The STEAM work, interdisciplinary work. STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And arts includes humanities and languages, as well as music and visual arts. So a lot of good stuff happening, a lot to be proud of. But, unfortunately, you got to continue to fund it to keep the momentum going, and you got to find that balance. Let's go to the next slide, please. Special services. A lot has improved over the last few years. We are more in compliance than ever in terms of what we're supposed to be doing with special education and 504 services. Our director, April Christensen, is really serious about the professional development of her staff, has them learning, taking workshops, making sure they're on top of their certifications, their memberships. And we have students that participate in unified activities like unified sports. There's a unified prom. This is where students with disabilities are interacting with students without disabilities or their typical peers. And that is really taken on, and it's a huge, huge improvement to what we offer our students. Let's go to the next slide, please. So instructional software, we broke in technology up to instructional and operational. So this slide is on instructional. We've assessed over the years, and there are things we're not using that we used a few years ago. We're trimming, we're kind of looking at it and saying, okay, efficiency wise, if only one teacher is using this, well, maybe we don't need it anymore, or if there's only one grade level, maybe we don't need that anymore. But there are a lot of things we do need. The Securely Suite has been a really awesome upgrade. Especially at Wheeler, where we can actually keep kids safe from going to sites that maybe they shouldn't be at on our network. We can know where they are. We have a digital pass system. And we have software for math and science. And also the IXL is a way that we measure kids' learning 3 times a year, and we collect the data, and then we can look at it in math and reading. We look at it in data teams. So that's a helpful program. And Forefront is really a system that compiles data from multiple sources, including SBAC, which is the state standardized test, and IXL and other data that then the data teams can look at it. It helps them to analyze it and efficiently determine what kids need more support and which kids need more enrichment. Because we don't want kids bored and we don't want kids lost all the time and it's like too difficult and they're just sitting there not learning. So that really helps. In terms of the hardware, we have, as you know, Chromebooks in grades 5 and 9. Now we also try to get 30 Chromebooks for K through 4 to divide up among the classrooms each year. And that is in our technology plan. On here, I typed in the half in the budget, half in the non-lapsing account. That's half of all the Chromebooks. So it's about 150 Chromebooks that we need to purchase. Okay, so half of those, or 34,500, is the number in the budget. And then there's another 34,500 that the Board of Ed's planning to spend a non-lapsing account on, trying to kind of break it up. And in terms of teacher laptops, we were able to acquire what we needed between last year and this year, and we actually don't have to budget for any of those in our budget this year. Okay, let's go to the next slide. This is on operational technology. You've probably heard enough about our cybersecurity incident, but it did force us to pay attention to our outdated infrastructure. And we had to upgrade. And you may remember last year about this time, I upgraded part of it with servers at Wheeler, and I called it really an emergency purchase. And I actually took a lot of heat for that. But it was the right thing to do. And this forced us to upgrade a lot of the other infrastructure. We're so close to being done. You got to replace some not servers, we replace some switches at the elementary school. And then, but if you look at the next slide, the Board of Ed is planning to spend $42,000 on a non-lapsing account to complete the infrastructure project and get us fully upgraded. So that's new switches and some access points. Those are things that boost the internet power. So that's not in the budget. And I think if they do that with the non-lapsing, it doesn't have to be in the budget for several years, the infrastructure for technology, because we have been completely upgraded if we just finish the project. Also, in their non-lapsing, they're planning to spend $28,000 on 7 interactive whiteboards. And there's half of the Chromebooks right there, the 34.5. As part of our cyber incident, we realized a lot of our old classroom printers were actually a cyber risk. We had to take them out. So now we have more centralized printing, which was in the sustainable technology plan anyway. We just had to do it faster. So now we have more centralized printing, and we have a committee that's looking at it and saying, okay, is what we have now enough, or do we need a few more? And the Board of Ed is saying, if we need a few more, we'll do it out of non-lapsing. We won't put it in the budget. So total $108,500 the Board of Ed is willing to spend in their from their non-lapsing account. If we added that, I like to do the percent. If you add that 108.5 to our budget, it would be 5.47, what we presented 6.15 tonight. And if we go to the next slide, here's a couple other things we've talked about at the Board of Ed. The Wheeler stage lighting is a problem, and it needs to be addressed. It's really old. And we have a quote somewhere between $100,000 and $120,000, because you got to change all the lights to LED. You got to change the dimmer panel, which controls the electricity to the lights, and then you got to get a new light controller. And all of that, you know, we have this kind of one estimate right now, but we have some more work to do. But you can see that the Board of Ed, with this slide and the last slide, they didn't have enough money. They don't have nearly enough money in their non-lapsing account to do it all. So it looks like they're going to have to make some hard decisions and prioritize, because none of that on this slide or the last slide's in the budget. So I'd be surprised if they have $1 left in their non-lapsing come July 1st. But they're trying to do some important things. Like how many times have we come here and talked about, or to the capital committee and said we need a new Kubota to move the snow around, right? Well, maybe we don't need one for 70,000. Maybe we can get one for 38. Okay, next slide, please. Enrollment's pretty steady. Like you see, this current year, 739, next year projected 740. We're not declining. I think we're popular. I think people like living in the town. And I would encourage us to think about keeping a really, really strong school system that will increase the property values. And then let's go to the next slide. I just wanted to show you the numbers. This is where the budget, our current budget, fiscal year 26, just over 6 million. I thought that, we could, I presented it just over 17 million. That was the 6.65% increase. And then the board said, well, I think we can get it down. Why don't you take out some of the technology, move it to the non-lapsing, and look at your software lines again. And we trimmed some of the software out. They prioritized, and the board adopted a budget of $16,939,347. And if we go to the next slide, please, we're going to see what is that made up of. The spacing here when you convert it to Google to PowerPoint. Oh, Christine, that's what that says. Okay. Christine would love to take over at this point in time.
Beautiful job if you want to keep going.
No, I'm good. I want to quit where I'm ahead.
Okay.
Well, maybe I'm behind. I don't
No,
know.
you did great. Thank you. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Thank you, Troy. Hello. Just before I dig in, I'm going to do the kind of the deeper dive on the numbers part of the presentation. In the packet that we handed out, I'm hoping everybody's got it in front of you. I'm just going to take a minute for the people that are on Zoom to just go over the introduction, because I think it was really well written. Thank you, Troy. And I just want to share kind of our perspective going into this budget. The North Stonington Board of Ed is committed to delivering quality education while maintaining fiscal responsibility. In the face of rising costs, particularly in salaries, benefits, transportation, and utilities, the district has developed a budget that balances these challenges with the educational needs of our students. The Board of Ed budget is a 5.47% increase, bringing the total to $16,939,347 for the fiscal year 27. The economic climate has led to increased expenses across various sectors. These increases mirror the financial pressures many families and communities are experiencing. Despite these financial challenges, the Board of Ed remains dedicated to preserving the quality of education. The budget prioritizes funding for essential teaching staff, educational programs, and student services, ensuring that students continue to receive a comprehensive and enriching educational experience. All right. So in the packet in front of you as we go through this, there is a few sheets that I'll reference that gives you some drill down detail on some of the line items in the PowerPoint presentation. So when we get to it, I'll kind of tell you which sheet to grab and look at to reference. And then I'll go through the whole thing, and then we'll go to questions after that, if that's okay. Okay. All right. So the on this first slide, we always like to show you the pie chart. Nothing new to see here, really. 81.8% of the budget is salaries and benefits, similar to years past. It really equates to the budget increase. 4.55% of that increase is salaries and benefits. All right. Similar to years past, nothing has really surprised us there. That's what we typically see. The next line item on that is, if you look at the chart, transportation is 7.2% of our overall budget, also contractual. And school expenses, like operational expenses, supplies, things like that, 3.2%. And then you can just see further down, maintenance is 1.6. Tuition is 0.5%. That's kids going out of district, not special ed, but just kids that maybe have found, we always want to find the right fit for our students. And some might find that going to a tech school or a magnet school is a better fit for them. The central office expenses is 1.2, utilities 2.5, and our technology is about 2%. Technology is not changing. Technology is a big and ever increasing expense that we will continue to have to put money into. I think if you can think back to years past, we used to zero out that line item. And it's caught up with us now. It caught up with us big with the cyber event. And we've had to do what needed to be done to bring us up to speed. And we're really hopeful and really deliberate in planning with our tech plan that we don't get into a situation where we're zeroing out technology and putting ourselves in a vulnerable position. If you go to the budget summary, the next slide, this is where you're going to have some detail backup. And what we did is on the large spreadsheet, you should have a bigger one in front of you, so it's a little bit easier to see. We referenced a line item with those. These are the larger increases in the budget. So the first one is going to be, and it's not, it should be line number by line number. So line 43 is the salary number. And you can see the increase there is 493,407. It's contractual. We are also looking to add a custodian this year. And if you look at one of the reference sheets we gave you is about custodial usage. One of the things the Board of Ed asked before we got into adding a custodian is, what does the timeout look like? What kind of call outs are they doing? You know, is everybody showing up to work kind of thing? And you'll see there, they're not taking anything excessive. They're taking out time just based on their contract and what they're allotted. But when we have custodians out for regular time off, we're really short. And there's oftentimes that our cleaning goes by the wayside. It's not quite as good as we'd like to see it, just because they're spread so thin. Also, about 2 to 3 years ago, was it 3 years ago, we did away with a grounds contract and brought it in-house to save money. So our custodians are, in addition to doing custodial work and maintenance work, they're also handling the grounds. And Randy has just come to us and said he really could use another custodian. We're also putting into the budget another $25,000 for a paraeducator that was hired this year. Then if you go to line 56, that's your benefits. We've had about a 15% increase in medical this year. In years past, we were able to see some decreases in medical. This year, it's a different story, unfortunately. And when you go to the line 74 is our central office line item, that's actually decreasing. We need less money for contract negotiations this year, and we won't have the NEASC expenses that we had last year. Line 124 is other expenses. And we've come to you in the last few presentations just explaining that our special ed expenses and contracted services, which is students going out of district, has increased. And that's increased $76,000. Line 136 is other expenses. We've had some increases to athletics. And we've also had some increases to officials and referees. As our sports program expands, we have to share the expenses for officials and referees, and that's increased as well. Another one I think is really interesting to take a look at, and everybody kind of asks about often, is we have this maintenance services line 182. And there is a chart in here if we want to take a minute. We broke it out because the town, as you remember, we've discussed the town sharing some of the expenses of what's capital, what's not capital, what's maintaining the business, the building, and what's Board of Ed. So we broke it out into 3 columns. The first one is the full amount. It's actually 4 columns, I should say. The first one is the full amount. The second column is what the Board of Ed is responsible for. And the third and fourth are for town maintenance agreements and town repairs and the portions that they're agreeing so gracefully to help us out with. And so when you subtract those out, you're still seeing an increase in the general building services for us of about $53,000. Utilities is going up about 11,000. That's line 194. Transportation is actually coming down a bit. Tuition, we had a little bit higher enrollment for magnet school this year anticipated, so that's going up 8,178. Technology is coming down a bit because we are moving quite a bit into the non-lapsing. So our overall budget increase is $878,717. You can go to the next slide. This just recaptures that general building services line item, the 328 minus the 200,000 brings us at 128,008. And when you're looking at that increase, it's like, well, why is it such a big increase? It's a big increase over last year's budget, but if you look at our actuals for this year, it's trending on what we're actually spending this year. And when we built this budget, we didn't want to just look at what we budgeted last year. We wanted to look at what are we actually spending and where are we actually falling this year. And we wanted to budget according to where we anticipate the spend being next year based on this year's spend. All right, we can go to the next slide, please. We just wanted to lay out for you what revenue we are bringing into the town. I know we say we don't have a profit and loss statement. We're just a finance statement, but there is revenue coming to the town for education. The ECS, the educational cost sharing, is not changing this year. It's $2,660,307. Our anticipated tuition to the town from surrounding districts sending their children here is $527,505. Bringing our revenue at $3,188,208. So our overall budget expense to the taxpayer is $13,751,139. Our next slide is just the budget history. We like to always show this as well. The average budget increase over the last 10 years, including our proposal, is 2.79%. The average rate of inflation over the same period is 3.29%. And the next slide is on staffing. In 24-25, you can see we're at 144 staff. Last year we were at 143. This year we're going up to 145.2. And the increases there is in the facilities, that's the custodian, and then also the 0.2 on the library media. And we also had an increase in paraprofessional this year as well. Or paraeducator now, I guess is the proper term, right? So that's the presentation. And then I thought we would just want to get into the nuts and bolts of the questions. I'll give you 5 minutes.
You spoke for longer.
Okay. I'm out of wind now. And if you could just reference what line item you're looking at when you have a question, so I can try to follow along the best I can.
So I have a quick one back to your slide 13. The budget summary table.
Yes, yes.
So just for clarity, so in the center, when you're talking about line 136, it says an increase of 12,000. Athletics officials / referees, 20,000 of 95,104.
Okay,
I'm not sure I understand that notation.
okay. Let me just follow along here. Kathy, do you know what that reference is? Okay. Because that one's a little, that one I can see being a little bit, like, where's the 95,104?
What's the 20 of the 95?
Right,
In reference to the 12, because I only see the 12 on the giant budget sheets.
right, yeah, so.
well, I'll find out. I don't,
Okay,
if they're not
so,
knowing off
yeah,
the cuff,
just-
I mean, it's only it's not only, it's a $12,000 increase for
Okay,
sure.
yeah,
And I'm
so-
thinking the 20,000 is a portion of what referees have to get charged, but I don't know where that,
Well, so my
References.
question is like, it's like duplicative of the line above it. So I don't know if this was like a fat finger or something.
I think if you look at all of the athletic expenses collectively, not just that 136, you'll see that the increase of $20,000 between last year's budget and this year's budget and next year's budget. It's not just that one line. 12,000 of it is related to officials and referees. That's the price. But I believe what is being done is it's including sports supplies and the other lines that are.
We're gonna,
Okay.
can you bring her the mic or? Thanks, Kathy.
because I think we referenced the line 136. So
Yeah.
that's why we're.
I think that 136 is just one line of many sports. If we looked at 135, 134, 136, if we even went up to 129, those are all sports related. I think if you add those numbers, you'll come up with your 20,000. And the 95,104 is the difference between the two budget years, which appears on line 173. Yeah. That makes sense? A little more clarity?
Thank you. So the 20,000 increase is of the 95,104.
Athletically weighted.
Okay, thank you. We maybe shouldn't have, I probably shouldn't have put just that one line item on that. Other questions?
Slide 15, the tuition revenue of 527,505.
Mhm.
Is that 26, 27 estimated tuition revenue?
Yes,
And is that based on the new tuition that's listed in page 11 of this?
yes.
Thank you.
So in reference to that, the page before that, page 8, says the cost actually is either 20.1, or even if you go with the average on the bottom is 18.09. If we take that difference times
Can you tell me where you are?
page 8, on that same thing she just referenced,
Page 8 of the full presentation, you mean?
sorry.
That's okay. I just have a lot of paper in front of me.
Yeah,
Just
well,
gotta.
I think
bear
it's
with me.
slide 15 we're talking about.
All right.
This is on page
Per
8.
pupil expenditure PPE. So North Stonington Public Schools says 20.695. Even if you use the average of Ledger's at 18.09, which is a smaller number, and you're only charging 13, that's a loss.
So we're not, you don't use the per pupil expense
Okay,
when you're figuring out a tuition rate. So when we look at tuition rates, we're looking at what surrounding towns and districts are charging
yeah,
for tuition. And we're basing it we're trying, when we first rolled out to go to other districts, we wanted to keep that number a little bit less
Yep.
than what some of the other districts around us were to draw students in. We didn't go a lot less, but a little bit less. I can get you the chart of what the districts around us are charging for tuition.
You can't bring that, okay.
Okay, because
That's
it's
what-
not
that's what I
based
assumed
on.
that was in there for. so.
No, so the per pupil expense is what, basically, it kind of explains how it's calculated.
Yep, I see
But it's
that.
what it costs to send, what our kids cost per pupil to come to school here. It is not what the tuition rate is. The tuition, just like what we pay to Magnet is not a per pupil charge when we send a child out to Magnet or to a tech school.
Okay,
They don't, a Magnet doesn't say our per pupil cost is this is what we're charging for tuition. They're two different numbers.
all right, so why would they be if it's costing us at the minimum 18?
Because like, for example, let's say you have a teacher, they're not just teaching that one student, that teacher's spread across
all of
many
them?
students.
Yep.
So if we had one student into that classroom, it's really not changing the dynamic of that classroom or that cost for that teacher. So you have to have a competitive rate of what you charge. A tuition rate doesn't necessarily equate into a per pupil expense.
Okay,
Does that make sense? Sort of?
sort of.
Yeah, it's, the per pupil expense is always a different mathematical thing that is done like on the state level and
It really shouldn't be used at all because it's just inaccurate.
Mhm.
It does not cost exactly $20,000
Right.
to educate a child here.
Okay,
If one more student showed up, the budget probably wouldn't change one bit. Maybe a little bit of paper and a book or two here, Chromebook.
right.
So that is taking a on a per pupil basis, wrapping in an incredible amount of fixed costs. And so honestly, we really even shouldn't look at that as a measurement. I know it's convenient, but it just doesn't send the right message as far as how much it actually costs, the marginal cost for an additional student to show up.
Right. They're
And-
two totally different
Right.
animals.
To speak to the tuition, we're in competition with other schools.
all right, I fully understand that.
And so, there is a truism that the customer sets the price. And so, we have to be cognizant of how much other schools are charging.
And we are looking at, we're at the last year of our current tuition scale, which goes up a little bit each year.
Yep.
And we've Troy's done some work on giving us a few different scenarios of what the next schedule is
should be.
going to look like. And we're starting to look at that now. And that will go into effect for the 27-28 school year.
Right, so those other towns know what they're going to be charged
Right, and actually
each
it's-
year for several
Yeah, it's
years.
the next school, right. So we're just starting to look at that now, and that will again have increases built into it each year, and we're going to set up a 4-year scale for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Like Gary has his hand raised.
Okay, Gary?
Yeah, I just want to chime in and I heard you, Lou, and I heard Christine, and I heard Mike, and I heard Carl. It just feels like we're negotiating against ourselves. If we have a good product and it's a good product and students want to be here, why aren't we charging more as opposed to charging to the median or the mean? Take it, Lou.
I can get you a copy of what other districts around us are charging, if that would help.
No, I get that. But if we're the best and we're a school of distinction and we're doing such a great job, why aren't we charging the most as opposed to competing with the other schools?
Can I ask a question on that? What schools are we competing
No.
with?
You're not allowed to ask a question when I ask the question. But go ahead.
No.
He needs an answer.
It's trying to get to your issue though, Gary. What schools are we competing with?
Well, I think to Gary's point, Gary, each school offers different offerings and different things. We're a smaller school, so what might be attractive to come to a smaller school might not be what attracts a student to maybe go to NFA, which is a much larger school, which has different offerings. Or maybe what attracts a student to go to Griswold, which is a different offering and different programs and things like that. So those are some of the schools that we're looking at in the local area. We're drawing from primarily Preston and Voluntown. So what schools are they looking at and what are interests to them?
That's
So
the question.
I guess that's the question. Where's the pressure point? Where's the pinch point? How do we know that? At what point do people choose to go elsewhere? And how do we know that before we set our tuition?
Well, every student is going to be different. So I can't say what is going to draw every student to come to North Stonington. And it might be, we could drop our price down to $17 and that might still not draw that student to come here because honestly, the students don't choose based on tuition. The students choose based on what school is best for them and their families.
Sorry, I went on mute because of my clock. Stand by.
Sure.
And this is still to Gary's point. Your present scale started from the beginning, correct?
Mhm.
And at that point, when there was no school of choice in Voluntown, in Preston, or elsewhere. So I recall from past conversations that you set a rate that made it attractive for those towns to decide to make Wheeler a school of choice, because Voluntown didn't make Wheeler a school of choice, nor did Preston. And now that we've have at least 5 years, 6 years, I think, because my nephew was in the first year and he is now a sophomore in college.
4 years,
What's that?
about 4
It's
years.
about 6 years,
Oh, okay.
because he's 2 years out of school and he came here as a freshman. So we have 6 years where we've now built a solid enough reputation for our schools, and those parents in those towns are seeing what kind of education their children are getting. And this goes directly to Gary's point. When you guys do set this new rate, those are things you need to take into consideration, that we're no longer just hey, come check us out, and hopefully they won't change their minds. At some point, those who's ever in charge in those towns are going to say those rates are too high for us to send our students there, or they're not. And I can think, because of the quality of education, that's going to play into how much they're willing to dole out from their taxpayer dollars. So I think we're in a prime spot to maybe really look at what Gary's talking about and being on the higher end in that new evaluation.
And the Board of Ed's taking all of that into consideration.
Yeah. So I think, we're in a good spot right now to kind of go to Gary's point.
And even though starting out, we were a little bit less, we weren't that much less.
No, I know.
I mean, it wasn't like we were giving it away by any stretch.
No,
It's
I recall all of it, and
Okay.
it was just enough to give a little bit of an incentive and
And those are the active conversations we're having.
okay.
No, and I know this is going to make Lou jump out of his chair, but the delta of 20.695 versus 13 is, from a taxpayer perspective, in a reval year where a lot of people are going to feel an impact, that draws attention. The other thing I want to ask is the 527, I think it was, I'm going from memory, tuition. Is that net of, I believe last year we had to pick up some part-time staff to watch the kids from the other schools because our staff wasn't there when they arrived. Is that net of that additional salary?
I'm not familiar with that.
Deb Karpinski watches the kids.
Here.
Oh,
Christine, take this over to her, so she don't have to get up.
okay.
You can sit still, just take that with you.
It's mobile.
We,
Is it on?
Oh, she broke it.
You broke it already.
We have a para that comes in 20 minutes early in the morning because the Preston and Voluntown kids get dropped off at school a few minutes early. But it's not a significant amount of money in terms of taking care of those kids.
No, I wanted to diffuse Lou's response when he says this is absolutely no additional cost to do this.
someday we'll talk about the contribution margin that these students provide to the school and how absolutely valuable they are.
Yes, absolutely.
When you're ready.
NBI, Lou, NBI.
I have a smaller question, if you don't mind.
Please.
On your maintenance, you've got 66,000 for Otis elevator. Is that broke right now, or is that you're expecting it to break? I mean, in other words, what I'm asking is, do you need that in there this year? Okay, so it needs repair. Okay, thank you very much.
And just follow up on the maintenance. We're going to need a little more explanation as to why, with the town taking over a lot of the maintenance, you're increasing your maintenance costs pretty substantially and adding another person. I guess I'm gonna have to see a little bit more information as to why that can be justified when this town is taking over so much more of your responsibilities.
So the salary line item is not part of that line item. That's a different line item. So that the maintenance isn't, if you look at what the town is taking over, it's repairs, town repairs, inspections, things like that. Our custodial work is kind of day-to-day hands-on work. It isn't fixing an elevator, for example. That's not something a custodian would do. So that's a different type of request versus some of these other repairs. If you look at our current forecast for maintenance services, we're forecasting this year at $135,000 in our budget. So just in that first column there that you're seeing. So that's where, in looking at what those actual expenses are this year, that's where we're looking at 128,000 on the Board of Ed side this year. So if you look at line in your budget, if you look at line number 178, and if you look at the forecast for 26, as of the end of January, we're forecasting to the end of year, our general building services to be $135,000 under Board of Ed expense. So that's where we came and looked at those expenses and what we anticipate repeating again this year, what things we anticipate in that line item, and that's where we come up at the 128.
Okay, but you budgeted 75.
We under budgeted.
Why? Where was the big difference? How did you blow by a budget by that amount of money? What happened? Because just my first take on that was the town took over $100,000 worth of maintenance work. You budgeted it accordingly and then decided to spend just as much as you were.
Kathy?
I don't mind taking that one. I remember last year, and at the time we did the budget and we had to make cuts. That's when we were told to make the cuts. We never wanted to go in at a $75,000 budget.
I remember the discussion, and we cut that line several times along the way, knowing the town was picking up some of the cost. And when we were cutting it, we were like, okay, let's keep our fingers crossed that we don't have even more repairs and more costs. And if the fingers crossed didn't work.
You must have had some logic when you cut that as to how you could survive on that. Otherwise,
it was a fingers crossed kind of scenario. We needed to get the budget down. You guys said to get down to 4%. We're like, how are we going to do it? Well, that's one of the ways we got down to 4%. And we kept our fingers crossed that we wouldn't have additional cost in that area, but we did.
But do you see, it almost comes across as a little bit disingenuous that's what you did.
Well, it was a different combination of board members then too.
Well, whatever.
So,
I mean, I'm just looking at it and saying.
Well, I think it would come across disingenuous if we had a large number and we only spent half of it, and then we're still asking for a double number. I mean, we're showing you, even though we went in cutting the number, we ended up spending way more than we had budgeted. We cut it hoping we wouldn't have to do that, but we did.
Okay, I guess what I'm asking then is to explain to us where you spent more additional dollars. from what you thought you were going to do, what happened to be so much different?
Find you the overages. What were the overages exactly?
Yeah,
Is
how
that
did
what you're
that-
asking? Just so
Yeah.
I'm clear.
Right.
Right.
I mean, it's like,
So I don't have this year's line item in front of me, but
Mhm.
what I can get for you is where those exact overages are, if that would be helpful.
I think it'd be a good starting point because it still doesn't seem to add up to me as to
Okay.
how that happened.
Okay,
That's just a
if I-
small thing.
Okay, and we can provide that detail, but Troy, you can speak to this much better than I can. We had classrooms this year with no heat that we had to have fixed that ended up costing HVAC, tens of $20,000. And it wasn't just in one classroom. We'd get a phone call for the kindergartens out of heat and we got to get somebody in because it's cold when there's no heat and there's little ones in a classroom. So we had quite a bit of that extra HVAC and et cetera work with New England Mechanical. Happy to pull it all together and show you exactly where, but it's been a lot this year.
Well, I guess from memory, I thought the town was taking over the mechanicals. I thought that was the agreement, that the town took over the mechanicals. So if there's no heat in the kindergarten, I would suspect that the town should have got the bill to fix that.
Yeah, the town was, they were willing to pay up to $100,000 worth of repairs. It's true. Yeah, you're right.
So you,
That was the deal. And they've
so
done
then
that.
that doesn't,
They
answer-
paid for a lot, but we need to give you the breakdown, I guess. Right?
yeah, because that doesn't,
They paid for a lot. They did.
it doesn't add up.
No, it doesn't, not only that, but I think we need a more complete picture. So I'll get with Melissa at the town and see what the town has spent to date this
Mhm.
year, what we've spent and what we've all spent it on, so that it's
Good.
transparent. Because I think, I don't know what the town has paid versus what we've paid. I only know what we've paid.
Okay, and the reason I think that's important is because when this whole switch started happening, I think for good reason that the town take over the maintenance and the big items. They're, I didn't want to see any creep in the budgets.
Right.
And that's what it appears happened here, is that the maintenance budgets went right along as they were, not recognizing the expenses that the town was taking over. So I think that reconciliation, because we're 2 years in now, I think that'd be valuable to see what exactly happened
I think
from,
that's a fair question.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is last year they took over 100,000. That was for the town repairs, Bob, correct? Yes. And this year, they're taking over the town maintenance contracts. That's the other line you see there, adding up to 100,000. So I guess
so
I see that you're adding 53, but where did the 100 that they took over, when did that come out? And wouldn't it be still $47,000 less? That's the math that I get.
well, if you look at, we gave you a list of every line item that's in that 128,000 that we're spending.
Right.
So if you want to look through that and then we'll get you what was spent last year for the 2026 budget, so you can see the differences in each of these line items. But I think it's really, for me, it's very clear when I look through this year's budget presentation, you know, repainting faded parking lines, $2,000. You know, you can see exactly each line item, what makes up that $128,000.
so speaking to that, what I think, I don't think we need to belabor this tonight
Okay,
any more than getting the information as to who paid for what
okay,
to reconcile, because the swing is $100,000. And so, like for the striping, did the school pay for that or did the town pay for that? So that's what
Right.
we need to know, because then that makes a difference on how this needs to be reconciled.
right,
That's all. So if you-
right, understood.
That's, I think that's as far as tonight anyway. for
Okay,
me.
all right, so we will get that to you as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Kathy.
Winona?
I forget, hold on.
And just before we get, when I'm going to get to you in a second, I think it's just very important for whatever the information that you go between the town, because I think that the town's going to want to know over 100. They're going to need explanation, and obviously we're going to need an explanation of how those numbers actually play out. Because it's a very important topic. So.
Agreed.
What's that?
No, I was,
Nick, you have a quick question? You gotta get the mic.
Do we have a program, and I would think it'd be in the middle school, so that we look at the children that are then going into the high school? Do they belong in the high school or do they belong in a trade school? Because I'm reading where, and watching, where in some cases they found where there was a student that was very dull throughout elementary to middle school, and when they put him in trade school, he excelled. And there's a big need for trades now, because in a lot of cases, in fact, I know of a few of them, they've gotten an education, and one of the ones that in the employment is very slim, and they haven't been able to get a job.
I think Troy can speak to that.
Yeah, just quickly, we have a great educators that attend to the kids. We all has a great guidance department, school counselors that know the kids really well, know what they're good at, and work with them and their families. And a lot of our kids from in 8th grade apply to go to technical schools or agricultural school or a magnet school, because they believe that's where their interests are best met, and they're going to learn some marketable skill coming out of high school. And there's, people are smart in different ways. There's multiple intelligences. Some people are really, really good with hands-on, and they're very, very bright. And tech school is a great place for them to go. So we have adults in the school who work with the families, and the kids really get to know them and kind of suggest to them or help them to apply to hands-on type learning schools. And we also try to offer some of those activities here. Well, as well, Wheeler, with the manufacturing classes.
could I just ask one more question? And something you said, Christine, that you're looking at the budget versus actual for this year, and you're looking at what happened in fact this year, what you projected for this year to be spending in comparison to the new budget, projected budget. So I guess my question would be on slide 11, where you showed current budget of 16,056, 441. What are you projecting to spend this year? If you're telling us that you've spent more than that, what's that number? Slide 11.
I mean, there is a forecast that you have in your actual budget.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you rephrase the question? I'm not following the question.
On your budget sheet, on the last page, the last column, second to last column on the right is 16,020,076. Is that that seems to be what they're projecting to spend.
That's what that said.
Yeah.
But earlier she said that you were using the projected numbers, which are higher than what you budgeted for. Unless
Are you talking just maintenance, or are you?
No, I
talking-
just said, maybe I misunderstood. Because I
We looked at
saw
the-
that.
We
I just Mm-hmm.
looked at the forecast where we're forecasting.
wanted-
And And then, like we talked about earlier, the biggest bulk of that is contractual, right? So no matter
Right.
what we're forecasting for salaries and benefits, it's going to be higher next year. It's not going to be a flat number because we have contractual numbers in there. So that's going to be increased.
So, okay.
So,
So
when we're-
I must have misunderstood you, so that you're projecting that actually you're going to spend a little bit less than what you budgeted for this year.
it depends on the line item.
I know, but I'm talking about in total.
In total, at the bottom of your budget, you're forecasting $16,020,000.
Yes,
What you have up there is $16,056,000.
that was our budget. Right.
Right, so you're forecasting 30,000 less than your current budget.
Right now we are, but as of January 31st.
Okay, this is March. Any
Well,
big
we
things
only
happening?
have our
No, I know,
financials
I
to
know, I
January
just-
31st.
Just, just-
You're killing me, Lou.
All right, Christine, so a semantic that I
Yeah.
just wanted to clarify. I remembered
Sure,
what my
sure.
question was. So,
Okay.
when we were talking about staffing, you had said about the new para. You had said about hiring them this year. Did you mean 25, 26, or do you mean 26, 27?
So we hired them mid-year last year, so they weren't, right, this current year.
Okay, so
Yeah,
like now?
now,
Okay. This is what I'm
right,
trying to-
so now they've been hired,
So
but
they're here today.
yes.
Okay, this is what I'm trying to
But
make
they
sure I
weren't in
understand.
our initial budget last year when we presented and when we put our budget forward.
Okay, so in line item, I think that's 10, no, 9. 9, I think they're 9. So they're in 9 already they're in 9 already for the fiscal year 26 forecast? Yes, Kathy's shaking her head, yes. Okay, good. That's what I wanted to clarify.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Gene, how are you?
I'm hanging in.
So I have a couple questions and they're both, they don't have to do with each other. My first question, and I just was reading up on ways for certain districts to try to cut costs and looking back at 2020 with all the, obviously the circumstances that, no one's really prepared for, schools, there was a lot of different updates and there's a lot of different increases. Was there a substantial increase in 2020 for teacher and staff at that time compared to the year before? 2020 during COVID. And then was there those underlying circumstances when we made adjustments and we, did what we could to get through that. Is there a way to look back at some of that additional staffing that was added and make cuts?
So I'd have to look at, I don't have those exact numbers in
Right.
front of me, but I can tell you what I recall. There were a lot of specialists put into play that were grant funded at that time. And when we went into putting those positions on, we knew they were temporary. So because of the need that children had to catch up.
Mhm.
And so a lot of those grants were 2-year grants, so they spread out over 1 or 2 years. So we put in some specialists for that. I know through some of our prior budgets, we pulled back on some of those as needed. But I don't recall us making and you weren't here at the time, but I don't recall us making big staff increases versus a few specialists. And I want to say math and reading are the ones that stick out to me.
Okay.
And I think we've scaled back when
Yeah.
some of that granting went away.
For
Or we're
example,
able to
last
absorb
year,
it.
we eliminated a half reading specialist from the budget.
So from the amazing talent of our teachers, we didn't have to bring in a ton of specialists that maybe some of your bigger districts had to do. So once that grant funding went away, we were able to,
Cool.
to
Yeah,
the
that
difference.
question just strictly stems from me researching and reading about other school
I'll
districts.
stop doing that.
I know, right? We're better, I know.
Gary's
And I have one more question. So for custodians, are they union in our town?
Yes.
Yes. They are. Okay, so looking into outsourcing and bringing a company to do that, like a lot of districts do, is not really an alternative.
Um,
I think it would be possible. but it could be difficult because there is a union currently here. They're also in the same contract with the para educators, and we're currently doing negotiations with them right now
I see
for the
that.
next 3-year contract.
And I do apologize. I know very little about, obviously, what this is your specialty, which is education. I come from a hospitality background. So a lot of hotels, casinos and whatnot, we are making reductions from staffing and then using outside companies to outsource for custodians, for housekeeping, things like that, because of the challenges that come with, small towns like this. To pay benefits and everything else, it's very cost consuming. So I just wasn't sure if we've ever looked at outsourcing and utilizing that as a tactic.
It's a good comment, and I think we can certainly take a look at what that might look like.
And just correct me if I got this misconstrued. Didn't we reduce the library aid last year to something to do with a French teacher, blah, 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 and now we're undoing that? Do I remember that correctly?
Do you want to speak to that again? I know we talked about it in the presentation.
Yeah, how much does that 0.2 cost?
No, I'm not after the point two. It was.
I'm curious, though.
I remember a lot. That's fine. Like, just stand by on the cost. I remember there being a lot of passion about it, and some townspeople speaking about it because the person was a relatively long-term employee and the benefits provider for their family, and we chose to eliminate the position. And now it sounds like we're reversing that a year later, and I'm just worried about the optics.
Not doing a full reversal of that
Yeah,
position.
so we brought it down to 0.4. And we only hired at 0.2, and we hired some library aides with the other 0.2 money. So the 0.2 is about $18,000. That's like 20% of a full-time salary. So it's about 36,000 approximately in the budget for that 0.4. So we're looking to, bring that up a little bit.
And Gary, that's still a shorter position. So we took a full-time down to a 0.4.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're looking at, because of all the renovations and some of the things they want to do at the media center, it's become much more hands-on for our students as a place to come and do different activities versus just screen time, which we're working really hard to move away from. We're taking that 0.4 now. We're looking to take that 0.4 to a 0.6, but it would not be making it whole again back to a full-time position.
Okay. Thanks. That paints a different picture in my mind.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Now, Mike's question. You got your answer. 18,000, Mike.
I did, thank you.
Sorry. Back to grounds and facilities, page 11 of the.
From that?
Just kidding.
Okay.
I had a follow up. I don't know. I feel like I'm like on Candyland. I don't know. Okay, so there's a comment in here on page 11 that so it talks about community events taking place at the school buildings, and I was just curious. Whenever a non-school event takes place at the school building, is there a charge for the services that are rendered at that building to pay for the custodians and the grounds upkeep?
If it's a non-school function, then
correct. If it is a non-school, because this specifically the word community event.
Winona, even when we did the basket raffle for the PTO, they had to pay for the janitorial services. They had to factor that into their budget.
Okay, so
They don't always charge for every person that uses the
so we're
building.
contradicting ourselves. So Troy's contradicting.
Well,
Miss Judy.
the PTO paid. The other organizations don't always pay.
sometimes
It's
there's
something that we have discussed as a board to say, do we want to start charging on a regular basis? And it really kind of depends if it's a Saturday or a Sunday and how much you're paying the custodian, because you got to pay them double time on a Sunday, time and a half on a Saturday. So it's something we've discussed, and it discussed the workload associated with collecting and how much would we really collect over the year. And it probably would be like, $3,000 over the whole year or something like that. Is it worth it? Because we have a Board of Ed policy that it says we don't charge. So we need to look at it. It's old. It's a gray area that we got to clarify.
We've also been talking about looking at use of our fields and all of that. If somebody from outside is using our fields, like sometimes there's club that'll come in to use our fields, things like that. Those are all things we're trying to address.
Okay, so TBD, and maybe I just put a bug in someone's ear. Thanks.
Go ahead.
In this, on sheet 9, of your presentation, sheet 9. You have a Mahindra tractor in there. The town does have a capital budget plan.
Yes.
And I'm wondering why this is not in that category and why you would need
It's
a $38,000. Is the town is plowing the parking lots, right?
It's for our sidewalks and all of that we've been doing. We had a presentation on it a few months back. And I think initially we had come forward with a replacement into the capital request and it got taken out.
Okay.
So this isn't something that we've approved in the non-lapsing or anything like that. It's just been on the table as a need that we have at the school.
Okay. So great. Given the level of increase, any money that comes out of the non-lapsing account for something like this wouldn't be available for something else. So
Correct.
That kind of money for, that just seems out of line. I don't know where you got that from, but that's a lot of money for a tractor to clear sidewalks. But, it just is. So I would just ask if you're considering that for your non-lapsing account, you might want to revisit that. That just seems really, really high.
Okay. And like I said, we have not had detailed discussion on putting that in the non-lapsing at this point. It's just been brought to our attention that's a need of the school. So I think we just put it in this slide as another need, not necessarily a non-lapsing need. And me personally, I think it should be coined to the town as a capital item, but we'd need to do more investigating on the actual cost of what that would look like.
Lou, I just want to speak on behalf of the school. That is market rate for a tractor these days.
That's a Gary's market rate.
Actually, as an owner of 8 used tractors, I would love to have a new tractor. That's the market rate for a new tractor.
Barry, would you happen to be selling any of your used tractors?
I would.
You don't want any of his old
It doesn't have a cab
tractors.
and air conditioning, but it has a snowplow.
This is no problem.
See me after the meeting.
Christine,
Yes.
did you guys set up who would be maintaining that tractor and who would be operating it?
We
It's not
haven't,
on the budget.
we haven't gone.
It's not being purchased.
That's okay. No, it's good questions, but we haven't gone that deep on it. It's just been proposed to us that it's a need of the school
Sorry-
at this
sorry to bring
point.
it up.
No, it's okay. Feel
All
free.
right, so we have I guess the big elephant in the room is, there's two things I'd think, these contractual obligations, because it doesn't sound like you're adding a tremendous amount of the staff, because that was what my original concern was. But when's the 4.55% increase? Those are based upon when was that union contract made that caused most of those increases? Last year? Last summer?
Well, when we negotiated last February or March, whenever that was done.
Okay,
This is the first year of that contract.
okay, so that's
Wait,
important.
the teacher's contract?
Yes,
We negotiated in the fall for the beginning of July 1st. Right.
We're in the first year of that contract. Yes.
No,
for
no,
25, 26?
No, we're not. we're in the third year of their last contract. July 1st starts the first year of the contract. We negotiated in the fall. We just negotiated it early to get it out of the way.
This budget is the first year of that. Correct.
I'm sorry, yes, this fiscal year, 27 budget.
I think
first year
that's,
of that
that's
contract.
very
Yes.
important because obviously that you have a large increase and we had, I know the 10-year trend, obviously we had years where we were able to do zero. Several years we were able to do zero and other years where that's slide 16.
And can I just talk about those 0 years a little bit? If we're going to reference that, those were also years that we zeroed out technology, zero.
I realize.
So, and that has kind of come to roost for us a little bit. In doing that, we've now paid the price for that.
I just think it's important for everybody, particularly and for us on this board, and when we have to tell the story to the taxpayers at a budget hearing, that last year we had a large increase of 4%, mostly based upon contractual obligations. And which contracts was that based on? And obviously you have new contracts and this is the very first year that they're going in. And that's why we have this big 4.55% increase just on contractual obligations that we can't get around.
That's right.
So it makes sense is what I'm saying, that if this is the first year that there's new contracts go in on a whole new 3-year contract, of why that number is that number. The second thing is the medical insurance. That's the other big pill we have to swallow. Kathy, what's going on with the insurance and why is there such a big swing?
So we're part of the consortium of a number of public schools, and the increase we've been given is 15%. We're basically self-insured, and there's a pool of funds that we have to utilize to pay down to pay down expenses. And some schools are spending too much and some are spending too little. But collectively, as the consortium, our rate is going up 15% to rebuild that safety net, that pool. It's not unusual in sitting at the meetings and listening to the insurance representatives. Some towns and state groups are experiencing 20 or 23%. 15% is high, but I don't believe it's higher than anybody else I'm hearing from. But we are part of a consortium where one for all for one.
All right, so we have no choice in the matter. We can't tell them, go pound sand, we're going to give you a 10% or 5%.
We cannot. The best we could do is withdraw, which may not behoove us because we would go into the marketplace and probably get a higher. Yeah.
Mhm.
And the state 2.0 plan is significantly more expensive. And before we went to the consortium, we looked at that pretty in detail.
Okay. These are details that, we just have to talk about and make sure that they're out there and we have these fixed costs that are really outside of our control. And it had to be a reval year that they did this.
Of course. The increases, contractual increases of 4%, is it 4% every year for the next 3 years, or does it go down as we go up? In other words, next year is another 4%, and then the year
For
after that
M&J
is
bus?
another 4%.
So
I'm sorry.
I don't have the
36
equation in front of me, but I can get it for you. It isn't flat like that each year because part of that contract, there's salary increases and there's step movement. So that number looks a little bit different, but I have it for each year and I can get that to you of what that percentage
Yeah, I
looks
think-
like. The other thing is to keep in mind as positions change, people retire, things like that, there's attrition sometimes. So then you can't take this number this year and say, tack on 4.5 next year and think it's going to look exactly the same because there's movement within those positions as well.
Okay. So I guess what I should have asked is, everybody that's getting a raise this year, not all the other steps, is that same raise, say it's 2%, is it 2% every year for the next 3 years on top of the salaries that are already here?
I don't
right now.
think it was, but I have to check.
Okay, let me know.
Yeah, I'll get you a copy of what it looks like.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Let's talk timing. We have a meeting on Monday. You've given us a lot to digest and, good materials for explanation and, but we have Monday that we're planning to talk about what we talked about here tonight. And, would you be able to get any of the information that you said you could get for us? Could
I
that be
think so.
done
I
by
think
Monday?
So I just want to make sure I'm capturing everything that you want.
Mhm.
All right, so the year-to-date spend on the maintenance and building, what we've spent and what the town spent, that should be able to pull from a report. The salary contract stuff I can get for you easy enough. I feel like there was something else that we needed.
No. Did you have a question that you were?
Oh, I know. Do you guys want to see what the tuition looks like in other districts? Okay. So all of that can come to you very quickly. Not tonight, probably. But could we have until Friday to get you that information?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, no, I want to
Gary?
put it together in spreadsheets and send it.
Yeah, and I want to be delicate about this because I know where potential cuts could be made as offered as an opinion is not typically well received. But where are we in the search? And congratulations, Troy, on your decision to retire. But where are we on the search for the replacement superintendent? And have we looked at whether we could do something creative about that and possibly not hire the highest salary in the district?
I want to be delicate with this as well because we are, we just put out our posting. The Board of Ed is the executive search committee for that. We have hired an outside consultant, thank you. And we've just started our work on what that should look like. And we've had lots of discussion around this position.
But you're budgeting for next year at a level.
And our posting is out there for a full-time superintendent at this time.
I think one other thing you could get to us, I know that Kath, you have this at the higher level and there's the details underneath on your own spreadsheets. Would it be helpful if we had the central office ones with all the numbers in it?
Mm-hmm. That's on my list.
So just that section, it's 57 through 73 is central office. No, I'm sorry. Line 14. If there's metadata under that of okay. Any other questions? Go ahead.
This past year, we had a power outage and it was a mess when that went through. What was done to make sure that doesn't happen again? Is there any cost associated with fixing that situation built into this budget?
Are you talking about the
Going
cyber
forward.
or the power? The power
sorry?
outage?
The power, the generators, nothing
Yeah.
worked.
So at I think it was our.
Let me just continue with as I
Oh, I thought
understood
that was a
it,
question.
no, it is. And then apparently some of the intercoms didn't work because the internet went down with it. So I guess I'd like to know, given that situation, how you fixed it, or is there any money in this budget to fix anything that needed to be fixed as a result of that?
So I'll turn it over to you in a second.
Yeah.
I do know that in the last meeting, they did a full analysis of our generators and what does it power, what doesn't it power, what can it power that maybe it should power. So they've done a lot of work with that. I know we did a lot with the telephone systems and everything, so I'll turn that over to you,
Yeah,
Troy.
so figuring out the situation has been a collaboration between the schools and the town. So Randy Rumrill and Alan Ladd have worked together with the contractor that has come out and assessed both generators, one at each school, and determined what they do power and what they don't. So our next step is to figure out what's the cost of hooking up what they should be powering, because there are things they should be powering that they're not. So that's kind of where we're at with it. It's been a struggle to try to get all that to happen, not because of our part, but just the availability of the contractors that have installed the generators and know about them. So there's not money specifically allocated in the budget, although that likely, because it's a town collaboration and it's kind of maybe like a landlord thing, that might be something we say to Mr. Carlson, Selectman Carlson, we have a need and this is what it might cost to hook up a few more things. And he would be very generous in giving a portion of his $100,000 that he dedicated towards repairs in the school. That's my best guess as to what could happen.
With one question on the cyber incident, I know you guys had some insurance. Are you expecting to get money back and where's that going?
So if you look at, when you look at our current year financials, the $100,000 has gone back into our budget. And you should have, I think I gave you a cyber breakdown.
Yeah, you did.
See where it is here. We did attach a cyber breakdown, right, Kathy? Did we not? No, because, yeah, that's right. 'cause
Not
I
in
wasn't,
not in these documents. no.
didn't really bring my cyber stuff with me, but I can get you the,
So I got a 9 January 26.
yep,
that-
that's the most recent one. So the 100,000, the insurance did come through on that. And so I know out of our operating budget, $60,000 was paid for the cyber, the 100,000 went back into the budget. So we funded a lot of that cyber with the non-lapsing. So now we're refunding with non-lapsing some other things as well to.
So is that money going to go back into non-lapsing or does it?
No, we can't. The only thing that can ever go back into non-lapsing is a overage
year.
from the last year's budget.
Okay.
So it went back into the operating budget and it should be showing on your financials
Okay.
that we send out. But I can get you, I have a sheet of and you have it there, the total expenses of cyber and where it went. Thank you. So you should be able to see all of that.
Okay.
Winona's forever request to have the files in Excel, please. So could we get this in Excel, please?
That's really not best practice to be sharing active Excel documents. And it is difficult for us because of the way the equations work. And when you download it, sometimes the equations change. Kathy and I have had that issue ourselves when she emails me documents. And it's just not best practice to be sending live documents out that someone could make a mistake on.
Well, to respectfully disagree here, you can lock it when you send it to us and then in another correspondence, tell us what the key is to unlock it. There is nothing wrong with sending somebody a live or an active, a workable Excel spreadsheet. That's done all the time.
I think part of it was, how much time does it take to do that above and beyond what was expected of Kathy and the central office. So, it's a request and it'll probably continue to be a request and
It's the spreadsheet.
We meet
Just-
again on Wednesday, so we'll talk about it as a board
Okay.
about that. I guess, to help us understand, if this document doesn't explain our numbers, is there something the Excel spreadsheet would do for you differently?
So
Yeah.
since I asked for,
Go ahead.
so what I would do is I would be running like percentages between, like the budget increase. So from 27 to 26, what the increase is row by row, and then the forecast. So what the 27 budget is over the forecasted 26 budget. So just to give an idea of where the changes are, up or down, as opposed to just the dollar amounts. That's where I would typically start.
Okay, because we did have those columns in and we actually backed them out for ease because we didn't want it to look like,
Well, not everybody thinks like Winona brain, because that's a
Okay.
little bit scary.
All right. So we can add those columns if that would help, if the board doesn't want
I mean,
to offer a manipulable spreadsheet.
so I don't want to speak for everyone. Go ahead, Sarah.
I was just like, as the Board of Finance, like a lot of us like to crunch the numbers different ways. Last year, Lou had done some assessment to say like, oh, you're primarily going up in administration and not in teaching. And it allows us to like, being in Excel allows us to slice the data and not ask you to do 27,000 different nuanced changes, just so we can understand, because we're really just here to understand the budget.
Well, I will, I don't want to make that decision myself, but I'll definitely bring it up at the next board meeting if that's okay.
Sounds good. Gary?
Yeah, and this is off topic, but sort of aligned. Is there sort of a narrative or a postmortem as to what happened with the cyber attack? Because those of us that don't have kids in the school system perhaps missed some of the communications around it. I heard you were down, but I knew nothing about it or what caused it or how long we were down or any of that stuff. And so if that exists, I would love to just read it sometime.
Can see what we have. I mean, we focused on the numbers primarily and left the details of getting us up and running and doing what needed to be done with those companies that we hired, with the administrators, with Troy.
I don't need the details as to all the nuts and bolts of what it took to get back. Is what took us out? How long were we down? That kind of look. That just
Yeah, we would be creating that. We don't have that.
We can try to put a summary together for you, if that's okay.
Yeah, and don't put it at the top of your list. You got bigger fish to fry. But
Well, no, but I also don't want to blow it off. So we'll put some kind of summary together and we'll discuss that as well at the meeting next week of how that should look.
I think, there's a lot of people in town that don't have kids in the school system that it was like the worst kept secret in town, and yet there were no details shared about it. So I think people would find it interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's nothing legal or ethical, then that you'd be risking, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about like a debriefing of some sort. I think just, Gary, just so you know, while it was happening, there was a lot we couldn't say.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm not being.
So we weren't trying to keep it a secret. Legal was really advising us a certain way to go about it. But I think now that it's behind us, we can maybe, give a debriefing of what happened.
Yeah, I think it might help sort of the doubling down on technology that you're doing right now and justifying why what had to be done got done. It just people don't know. So
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Yeah, sure. No problem. Thank you for bringing it up.
Any further questions? Okay. And just. I just, before, the Board of Ed leaves, part of the next agenda item is the library. The vote was Monday and it passed. And so, we have to talk about how the funding is going to occur. And the present preferred method by the Board of Finance is to take a loan out for the $1 million and pay it over 10 years. And if you recall the original presentation, the cheapest method is actually do 2 payments per year. It lowers the amount of interest, and then if we possibly can use some undesignated funds to help pay that down over the next several years. That's going to be determined after this budget season, obviously. But with the library included, so if you can bring up the one that, yeah. Just the, yes. Yeah, do people see that at home? No? Yeah, you'll have to share it. So this one is including the new Wheeler loan payment, which would be 156,550 if we did the 2 payments per year. If we didn't, it'd be 158. So that as we had the public comment, it is a 0.17 mil increase on its own. So this is for you too. So using the draft general government budget is the one for this year. It includes now the Wheeler payment, and it's using your last year's budget just so we can see what's going on. So in order to cover the expenses using your last year's budget, we'd need to get 20.06 mils at the current net grand list. If you go down a little bit. So the taxpayer impact, that's at, if someone there was a 62% increase roughly in all real estate on the median. So if that person's property went up 60%, their old tax at the mill rate of 28.88 is the 5,216. And if it went up 60%, that's the new assessment. And at that 20.06 mils, they're paying that, and it's a $653 difference. It's 12.52%. So that's if someone had a 62%. If someone had a 47% increase or lower in their assessment, they're going to pay less taxes, just so we're clear on that. And I'll show you another slide that's about that. We're gonna work on that on Monday.
And you're using the 935 as
Correct.
Punch in the school number now?
Yeah, yes, and you can take this off. And go to the one that has, this is boss. So with your new budget in the 16,939,347 and with the Wheeler loan payment, it's 21.02 would be the required mill rate to cover. And if you can just go down below there, just that one person that has the 62% increase, they're now at 17.91% higher than last year. So it's significant, guys. If we're and I also should I slow that slide with the
Can you show me just the library mill rate again? I'm sorry. Did anybody write that down? Does anybody remember what it was?
156.
No. What was the mill rate?
The impact on the mill rate?
What was the mill rate with the?
I don't have that. Just the impact.
I thought it was like 0.17 above the baseline. whatever our baseline is.
You can take that down now too, but it's a one, you guys, you gotta think, a mill right now is $935,000 and change. So your budget is just under a mill increase. Can you show there's a slide in there with, I think it gives. The revaluation one up top. Yeah. All right, so this is a slide created, this person had a $200,000 house. What the cost was at the 28.88. If they had a 0% increase, 20% increase, 47, it's self-explanatory, up to 200%, which some people I know have had happen to them. And at that 21.02 mill rate, this is what they're going to be paying, and the difference in the percent, either down or relatively flat or up, depending on what their particular assessment increase was. So again, this is just demonstration purposes. We're still well deep into the budget process, but I'm only doing this for demonstrating to everybody here and everybody on the Board of Ed and then the Board of Selectmen as to what the impact is. It's significant. And, depending on what your assessment went up. And to be clear, some people's taxes could even go down with what we're doing with the increase, because the mill rate goes from 28.88 all the way down to 21.02 under this scenario. But some people could get really affected by this. So that was my point, that I wanted you guys to be here to see it in real time, the impact that these increases have.
Slide the bar over to the left. Oh, no, the other one.
Yeah. And that's where we are currently with this particular budget in there. And so we're going to talk Monday, and you can just anybody can go home and take their assessment and put 21.02 mils in, which if they want to multiply it, it's 0.02102. That tells you what your taxes are. So hopefully this number is going to go down, and we'll work together to do so. But you can take that off now. I don't want.
Nick.
Let me to public comments, Nick, or do you have? Okay. Or do you can do yours first right now, just because you're a senior statesman. But you got to use the mic.
There you go. He's got it.
I'm letting.
Are you planning to give them money up front before the project has even started?
You mean the library? Who are you speaking of? The library?
Yes.
No, we're just going to be preparing to get the loans for when they're ready to go.
Sure, use before you even bother to get a loan. Use some of the excess undesignated fund balance?
Well, that's a philosophical debate that I'd love to have.
Well, my curiosity is, I would recommend not giving them any money until they need it and leave it in our accounts and let it grow, because $1 million in 1 year, and they won't probably need our share after the first year. You'll make what, $40,000-$50,000?
Yeah, that's all, we're thinking about all that stuff, Nick. We're certainly not, we don't want to start incurring interest until we have to, but we have to have a plan. And we have to take advantage of whatever rates we can at the time we can.
Have they given you a schedule and their cash requirements?
Probably not, because, no, they haven't, because we had to wait for the town to say yes before they really going to start getting into the meeting.
That's what I'd do is wait until they end up with okay, the project is going to be 2 years, 3 years, what? And when will they need our money?
We've already asked those questions and they're going to be prepared to answer them further as we get into this.
I hope when you get, they say they have information, you ought to have a meeting, because there's a lot of very financial people in your town or interested in the town who may be able to help out and volunteer for the best way to do it.
Agreed. Is that it?
So I'd just say, give me all the information you got, and then you look at it and see what you haven't got, and then make them give it to you, and then you can make a decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it has to be on the budget. So that's why we're having it on the budget. There's a lot of people that wanted to have the whole thing paid for in this 1 year, and we're not doing that. Thank you, guys.
Good night, guys.
So continuing on with the Wheeler Library discussion. They asked, they got a letter from the town saying, so they could send to the state that the vote passed. And, but it's basically, we're gonna have to direct the Board of Selectmen as to what method they should be doing right now to uphold that town given promise. So I don't know if we want to do that by vote to direct Bob to go out to the debt market and secure that loan.
Mike, I'd also like to know the timing. So when you get the time for the library, so we don't want to go and take that loan until we basically have to, depending on what the interest rates are doing. And I also want to run it by Chelsea Groton. All our numbers came from Dime Bank, but I do want to give our local people the last look at it.
Okay.
Just to make sure, because if we have the same number, I'd rather deal with them as we do most of our banking. But if I knew that they were going to start at, I think I heard they wanted to stop by early fall.
Correct.
So I don't want to take out the money too soon and start accruing interest on it.
True.
So I think once we know more about the timing, you can come up with how you want to do it, but then let's figure out the timing and then we know in the best way.
I think we can basically just go with a directive of, we want you to start seriously investigating, what are our actual numbers that we got and what are the projections? Are they looking at interest rates going up in the future that would seriously affect this budget?
Does the $1 million from the town and the $1 million from that they raised, is that the first $2 million spent and then they're reimbursed by the other $2 million, or?
I believe that's what they said.
So we have to spend our $2 million first, then they spend the $2 million from the grant?
I believe that's what they're counting on. to have that cash flow.
Yeah, let me give, I'll talk to Kate about that just to see what her timing is. So again, if we don't have to take out the loan until November, but I also want to go from the bank, our interest rates trending upwards or not?
Right,
Okay,
right. So
so you want to give me that directive? I'll
yeah,
start that.
that's the directive. Go talk to them.
Great, thank you.
So Bob, I got my hand up, sorry. It's time for the project manager and the construction manager to lay out a level 2 schedule and the cash flow associated with the project. So they're going to need issue for bid drawings or issue for construction drawings before they can even pull permits. So they're a fair distance away from actually doing much without permits. So
True.
Exactly. But Gary, since they have the original $1 million they raised for fundraising and the endowment that they were going to take out of, couldn't they use that money as their startup money for plans and the early expenses of the project?
yeah, oh yeah, that's where I'd be going. But all I'm saying is, even if they press to go tomorrow, they're a couple months away from even submitting for permit approval to do what needs to be done. Assuming
On Monday evening, I heard the president say that, the president of the board say that they had hoped to do something in the fall, to start in the fall. So again, that's another 5 to 6 months away.
Yep.
So but maybe to Gary's point, can we ask when they'll be ready to come present a schedule? Like we know they have to do those things. So if they could come present a schedule and give us a time frame that makes sense to have money prepared for based on their schedule of the work they have to do now.
Yeah, then when you talk to Kate about what is their immediate plan, and see if she'd be willing to, get her crew together to come present to us about, timelines and all, the cash flow and everything else when they have it. When is a good time for them to come in?
I think they're gonna have at least a couple of weeks before they even get back from the state that they're definitely assigned for it.
Right.
And then they can start spending money. They have to wait till they have that, because everything they spend from when that starts, they can account to it. If they spend any money before that, they can't use it or count it towards that grant. So they have to wait for the grant to come back and say it's definitely there.
True.
Okay. So you got a little bit extra time too.
Okay. Anything further on Wheeler Library? No. Nope. Good to see you, Nick. Do we have any new minutes? No. Okay. Public comment. Brian, you have 3 minutes.
I look forward to hearing you, Brad.
The big button first. Right there. There you go.
Yeah. It turned red anyway. Okay. Well, anyways, first thing I gotta say, I'm so glad the library went through. My money for my shirt was well spent.
We said you gotta have a new shirt that says even Brian wants the school budget.
That's gonna be a tough one. It's funny, I was just gonna comment on the school budget. Not a lot, because I just got it, so I gotta go through it. I heard it. And I would expect you to hear me expand more on it, but some of the things I look at is, I don't know, I've never liked that, what do they call that thing? The non-lapsing. Is that a state mandate? Oh, okay. So I'll have to take that up with the state. I don't know if they're allowed to just keep adding to that and adding to that, because to me, That should be a 0 when they start out with their budget, not have a bunch in there. We've already paid that. And as far as the contractual stuff, I know they're unions. Unions are tough. I was in one. I got out of it because I believe people ought to get their raises because of a merit, what they know or what they've learned and what they can do. Not just because they got the years in or they got another certificate that says they know this. I worked with people like that, and they used to make the same pay as me, and they didn't know how to do half the stuff I already was doing. That's where it becomes unfair. So I don't see any problem with it. You can tell the union, no, you're not getting a raise. I think that's what the steppeds are about. Steps up because they got another certificate. So, okay, now they get a little bit more money. Well, a certificate doesn't make you better in your job. It just gives you went through that course. Those are the things I wish we could look at. I don't know if the school's allowed to do that. If you're scared of them going on strike, then they don't really want to teach, do they? That's the way I look at it. I'll tell you right now, I think the school ought to have a 0% increase, simply because last year seems like they got a couple of different good gobs of money. One was from grants, I believe, that they had it in their budget. But you guys don't know that. I just thought I'd remind everybody, because those are the things that bother me. That comes out of my pocket, your pocket, every taxpayer pocket. And we can only vote for the bottom line. That's the problem I don't like. I mean, I can make suggestions just like I did. And you see out that we're going to put the bottom line in there. Well, I hope that bottom line is 0% this year. Because like you say, we got a reval. Our town's taken out a lot of things, which I think is great. And I believe that our town should be looking at educating the kids that live in our town. Kids that live in other towns, they want to come here, that's fine. I'm looking at that budget should be to be able to educate the kids in this town. Now they're saying that we got 749, I think it was. And we got, does that include the kids that come from some other town?
Yes, we consider them our students.
Well, I don't. Sorry, I don't. Because they're from Valentine, they're Valentine kids. That's the way I look at it.
Some of those are my nieces.
What can I say? That's the way it is.
I grew up in Voluntown.
I just believe the kids we are called to educate the kids in North Stonington. Kids want to come somewhere else, and okay, whoop, raise up for them to come here. You don't have to keep it low. We're a great school. We're teaching kids. People, and if they want to come here for that, then they'll realize that and they'll pay the price. I'm paying the price and I don't even have any kids in the school. So anyways, I think my 3 minutes is probably up, huh?
Quite so. Thank you, Brian.
I'll be back.
Appreciate you being here.
Anybody else?
Anybody online? Oh, Ogden.
How about that? That worked. So I'm not really here to talk for it, against it. So if you're listening online and people speak right up next to this, all you hear is the P's and the B's and things like that. It's really brutal online.
Is it?
Oh yeah. You almost want to like talk next to it instead of right into it.
Got it.
There's my 2 cents.
I think Gary gave that same point.
Yeah, I think he did. So I'm not really here to pick apart the Board of Education budget, but I do have one question about it, which I will share. Hopefully you guys can get an answer to it. There was an item presented about the total cost to the taxpayer for the school of $13,751,000. Do you guys have the information for what that number was for the current school year? How does that compare to this current year? I understand this is, I view this kind of like the town budget when it was presented, where there's a big increase, but there's also a big increase in income. So the actual cost to the taxpayer isn't that much. And I realize that's not what I'm voting on when the time comes to go vote, but that's what I'm really interested in is what's the cost to the taxpayer?
It's mainly the ECS that,
So it's.
I think you probably need to talk. If I have to talk into one, you have to talk into one.
Said. So I can get you that exact number, but the ECS number didn't change this year, which is the big number. And the tuition number will be just a little bit less because the tuition number went up a bit this year. So if you take this year's budget and back those two numbers out,
it's about the same.
It'll be very similar, not exact, but very close.
Okay. And I guess one other question I would have is line item 210, software and licenses went up by 20%. I got to ask why something goes up 20%. Just because.
So it went up 20% from last year or?
Yes.
So I also think it's very important that you realize that, yes, they bring in revenue. However, the town itself pays the $1 million school modernization bill every single year from that. So it's not a 13, it's actually more like 14 because you have to add, if you take the revenue, you got to take the debt on that. So it's not as simple and as clean as you get ECS, you get the money from the other towns. It's yes, it divvies out, but then you also have to add that line right back in of the other debts on that. So it kind of evens out.
No, again, I'm just trying to, I'm trying to have a number to compare this one to. That's all. Thank you.
No problem.
right. So Christine, I have a question just on that point. I'm sorry to interrupt you guys. That ECS money, when it comes in, that's reflected in the revenue side somewhere? Right. Okay, so, right. As well, along with the tuition too, is right?
So,
okay.
So all debt and all income comes through the town
Right.
first, and then it gets divvied out that way. That's
Correct.
why I'm saying is if you're counting it, the 500 and change goes the one way, you got to pull the debt also.
Yeah, and it's just
Yep.
Yeah. It's in case anybody wants to know, it's line item A3.02.
The town.
In the
Thanks.
town budget.
Any further public comment anywhere? All right, next meeting is Monday. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
But
right.
wait, hold, can we just make sure that, I want to make sure that I understand what our meeting schedule is coming up.
Okay.
So we're meeting on Monday, the 23rd, and then we do not meet on the 25th, correct?
Correct.
And then, but we are meeting on the 30th.
Yeah.
I'm just give me a second. I got
Yeah, I just-
we, for March,
Just want to make sure I
we have,
understand what we're doing.
23rd and the 30th,
The 23rd and then the 30th.
then the 30th,
And then,
April 1st, then the 15th. We're back to normal schedule at that point.
wait, I have April 6th, but April 6th is on our list.
It's on there, but look at what it is.
It's probably not us.
Probably not us.
Review, Board of Finance, review budget with changes.
If needed.
If needed. It's a special meeting.
There'll be a special meeting. We can decide
It
to
doesn't
use it.
say that. So that's why I'm asking.
Should.
So it doesn't. This is why I want to make Board of Selectmen and Board of, see, this is why I want to make sure.
Yeah, our meeting schedule, which I set with the town, as the 23rd and 30th of this month, then the 1st and the 15th. And I
So-
imagine the budget things, if we need to have special meetings, that's when those will be.
Okay, so we actually have the 6th and the 8th is on this calendar, just FYI. So we can work that out. And, or just throw this in the garbage.
I don't know if, does your budget timeline have something different? Yeah.
Well, no, I have them penciled in Mondays and Wednesdays all the way through April.
Well, so I mean, this is important that I know so I can plan. That's why I'm asking.
I thought we did say to pencil in Mondays and Wednesdays, knowing that we might not
cancel.
need them all.
Well, I'm just,
But
look,
you-
somebody
I know.
printed this up with colors and all this beautifulness.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to confirm what we've got
So
going on here.
pencil those in and we'll,
Okay, because my, all right. 30th.
So Wednesday, the 22nd, what is that one?
Wednesday.
Adjustments to the budget-based hearing,
Say that again?
April 22nd, Wednesday. Adjustments to the budget based on hearing. Is that for us?
You're like a month from now, dude. I'm still trying to
I've
figure
got
out.
to plan my place for
Yeah.
for stuff going
I've
on.
got a lot, I've got a lot happening in the next 2 weeks. That's what I'm trying to figure out, the 6th and the 8th. I guess we just say we're meeting and work around it.
Yeah, playing for Mondays and Wednesdays can be lost.
4, 6,
All right, so
maybe.
I'll just plan extra people.
4, 8, maybe.
Yeah, you have the 25th and the 8th. The 25th and the 8th.
And you guys have the first and the 15th.
Well, so FYI, the 8th is set when it says that we vote to go to public hearing. So that's kind of a big
It's a
deal.
special meeting usually.
But she's saying they have the 8th.
Yeah, they have the 8th.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Do you want to, do you want to do this in the meeting part, or do you want to just?
I don't know. We'll just, I guess we just
gonna be here
adjourn.
Monday.
I just don't, I want to make sure that this budget timeline that you're looking at is the one that everyone
Suzanne,
has.
do you have the budget timeline? Send it out, and we'll put it on the agenda, review it first thing Monday.
Yeah,
We'll do that.
yeah, let's do that. So we have an accurate
This
one.
is
If-
one I
And if
just
your
saw.
budget timeline needs to be updated for some reason, because we know what our scheduled meetings are. It's,
Yeah, we'll just do that.
yeah. So all those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
All right.